Over the course of the last few years, I've been falling out of love with the Cadbury brand, and judging from the flood of comments that I get from you guys when I upload Cadbury reviews, so have you. They used to be a company that you could guarantee a certain level of quality from. They released inventive products that were made to a high standard. Kraft are painted as the evil overlords that ruined our beloved institution. Rumours of mass termination of long-serving staff, a tirade of product shrinkenings, and the removal of fair trade agreements across their product range. But is there any truth behind this? What happened to Cadbury? The recent history, Kraft and the split to Mondelez International. In the late 2000s, Kraft, the multinational food and drink conglomerate, made moves towards hostile takeover of Cadbury. Now, hostile takeover is exactly as it sounds. It means that Cadbury didn't want to be taken over and they tried their best to stop it from happening. But in the end, it did happen and they couldn't stop it. As I said in that introduction, Kraft are often painted as the villains in conversations about Cadbury. But why is that, and is there any truth behind it? Well, there may well be. In official stock market announcements, Kraft said that the UK would become a net beneficiary in terms of jobs and employment, specifically citing the Somerdale factory near Bristol would remain open. When the deal was complete, they closed the factory down. So operationally, what Kraft did after the deal was complete was they split their company in two. They created Kraft Foods to focus on its US grocery business and Mondelez International to organise its international confectionery brands. Skip forward a year or two and we reach 2013. That's when Food Review UK was created, and we can have a little look at the relationship between Cadbury and Food Review UK and what was happening around that time. 2013 was the controversial year when Mondelez changed the shape of the dairy milk blocks from normal blocks to more of a bubble or dome. This also reduced the size of the bar by 4 grams. This change followed a previous change in 2012 where the large sharing bars were reduced in size as well. So in 2014, Food Review UK, we reviewed 18 new Cadbury products that year. I remember being really chuffed with most of the products that were released around this time. In particular, the Cola Pretzel Honeycomb Bar was one of my all-time favourites. In the next year, 2015, the number of new Cadbury products dramatically reduced. We only reviewed 3 products on the channel that year. That was an oat bar and the 2 flavour varieties of the Puddles bars. Something else happened in 2015. Mondelez paid no UK corporation tax that year. Incidentally, they made £100 million profit. In 2016, Cadbury dropped the Fair Trade Agreement from their entire range of products. Now, the Fair Trade Agreement outlines a number of principles, including a minimum income for cocoa farmers. Around this time, cocoa farmers living in Ghana and the Ivory Coast had an average income of under $400 a year. Conversely, Irene Rosenfeld, the CEO of Mondelez International, was paid $17 million that year. Looking at Food Review UK and the Cadbury products reviewed over the next couple of years, you see a dramatic increase in the number of spin-off products from Cadbury. These products typically didn't taste of Cadbury chocolate or dairy milk or anything like that, and it was around this time that Cadbury felt like it was starting to lose its prestige. Seeing the Cadbury logo was no longer a guaranteed stamp of quality. Mondelez International started to abuse their ownership of the Oreo brand, sticking it in just about everything, and the overall lack of quality of these products started to become a bit more apparent, including the peanut butter flavour Oreos, which don't contain peanuts. And they don't taste like them either. You might also remember the cream egg controversy around this time, where they changed the recipe, which led to a dramatic reduction in sales. Now, the subject for this video that you're watching now and that I've written came to a head for me around the end of 2018. We were enjoying our Christmas tins of chocolate and we bought a tub of roses. And something just didn't quite taste right about them. I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but I just didn't enjoy them. They just felt like a shadow of their former selves, and whilst some people may say it was nostalgia or rose-tinted glasses, no pun intended there, I just remember enjoying them so much more when I was a child. Like I said, I couldn't put my finger on what it was about them that I didn't enjoy as much, but I made a video about this anyway, and one of my brilliant subscribers made this comment. The chocolate's melting because there's a higher vegetable oil content in them. Cadbury's en masse has kinda went down the toilet. They now actually have 3 chocolate recipes which you can determine by eyeballing the ingredient concentrations. Their best is dairy milk, which is degraded in quality the least, though it's still degraded. Anything that has dairy milk branding on it has to have this recipe and has a higher concentration of milk solids, making it creamier. Then there's the lesser coating recipe of chocolate. This is the lower grade chocolate they used as a chocolate shell around their bars, like Double Decker, Crunchy, Star Bar, Picnic, etc. Thankfully you don't notice it so much due to the fillings. Finally, and sadly it's the recipe they're using most frequently now, it's the Odds and Sods chocolate recipe that has a ton of vegetable oil in it. They use this in roses, in biscuit products, cereal products, anything with Cadbury chunks or chips in, bakery cookies, donuts, etc. And it has that more greasy, super quick, melty feel to it. In fact, the final trigger for me wanting to make this video was when I recently tried the Cadbury Coconutty Inventor Flavour Bar. I had it out of the fridge for 20 minutes and by the time I was eating it, it was already melting. Now this comes down largely to a higher percentage of vegetable fats. Tommy's comment really stuck with me. It perfectly explained why I remember enjoying roses more as a child than I did in recent years. Recipes. As just mentioned, it seems that Cadbury used 3 different grades of chocolate for their chocolate products, starting at the highest grade with a higher percentage of cocoa solids and then the lower grades flipping the percentage with vegetable fats. What this means in actual terms is the grade with the higher cocoa solid has a richer and tastier flavour, with the grades having a higher percentage of vegetable fats having a different mouthfeel and melting at a much lower temperature. So I started researching the different recipes used for Cadbury over the years. Whilst I was able to find a 1990s version of the roses recipe, I couldn't actually find the normal dairy milk recipe, although I did find the recipe for the Spice Girls Cadbury bars. I believe these used the same recipe as the dairy milk, so I think it is a reliable recipe to compare. One of the mainstays of the recipe that has been there for years are a couple of E numbers. I'll read out what they are, although I will say these have been in the recipe since the 1990s at the very least. E442, which is an emulsifier obtained from fatty acids, primarily rapeseed oil, and E476, which is an oil-based emulsifier high in glycerol, which is sweet. These two become one of the primary ingredients when you compare both the newer recipes and the older recipes like the one from the Spice Bar. In fact, I don't want to go too much further without showing the full recipe of the Spice Bar from the 1990s. Milk, sugar, cocoa mass, cocoa butter, vegetable fat, emulsifiers E442 and E476, and flavourings. So let's compare this 1990s Spice Bar recipe with the 2020 dairy milk recipe. Now one thing we want to be looking at is the order in which the ingredients are listed. UK regulations dictate that the order of ingredients on packaging has to be listed by weight. That means the highest weight goes first. The key difference between these two recipes is that cocoa mass is leapfrogged by cocoa butter in the newer recipe. Surprisingly, not too much is different between the two recipes apart from this small change. The only other slight change is the specification of the vegetable fats used. On the newer recipe we see that it specifically states the fats are shea and palm. Now it's unclear if these are the same fats that were used in the 1990s. It could just as easily be a change in regulation for UK ingredients. However, some of these are fairly technical terms and I for one didn't actually know what the difference between cocoa mass, cocoa solids and cocoa butter or fat is. So let's delve a little bit deeper. What is cocoa mass? Cocoa mass is the name given to the solid parts of the cocoa bean processing. This will primarily be made up of cocoa nibs and some portion of cocoa butter. Cocoa solids have the highest concentration of cocoa flavour in them. When they are processed and dried further, this will create cocoa powder. What is cocoa butter? Simply put, cocoa butter is the fat extracted from processing cocoa beans. Whilst still flavoursome, cocoa butter is not as strong in cocoa or chocolate flavour as cocoa mass. One thing that actually wasn't easy for me to find when I was doing research for this video was the difference in cost between cocoa mass and cocoa butter. One would expect that cocoa butter is cheaper than cocoa mass, although this wasn't definitively clear from my research. Another interesting note on the recipes is that each of the recipes on the Cadbury website has a disclaimer. Here is the disclaimer from the dairy milk recipe. Milk solids 20% minimum, actual 23%, cocoa solids 20% minimum, contains vegetable fats in addition to cocoa butter. Cocoa solids is the key thing to look out for here. With a higher percentage of cocoa solids, it means a better texture and a better and stronger flavour. The amount of cocoa solids in Cadbury's products seems to be the same across most of their products at 20%. There is one very interesting thing about the recipes, and that is there is a higher grade than dairy milk. So forget that 3-level thing that I said about earlier. There's a god tier. The recipes for Flake, Twirl and Whisper all contain a minimum amount of 25% cocoa solids. I would assume that's down to the texture that these individual chocolates need to hold. But if you want the best quality tasting Cadbury chocolate, go for these products because it should actually be the highest quality that they make. Part of me has to wonder if this is why the Whisper Gold is still my favourite Cadbury bar. Man, that bar is still just awesome, isn't it? Earlier in this video, when I mentioned Tommy's great comment at the end of 2018, we talked about the 3 different levels of recipes, and that anything with the dairy milk logo or label has to use that top high grade recipe. Now, I wasn't sure how true this is today in 2020, because having had the Vote bars that came out this year, they melted incredibly quickly, so much so that it made me want to do an experiment. So here we go, I have a Twirl and a Vote bar, and I've taken the temperatures here. You can see they're within 0.3 degrees of each other, so they've been out of the fridge for about an hour. I hold my fingers on them for I think it was about 15 seconds. And as you can see, the Vote bar has melted onto my finger much more than the Twirl. So I've spoken quite a lot there about the recipes and in some quite great detail. So let me try and summarise what I think we might have seen happen. This may be opinion based and not entirely conclusive from what we found, but I think it's fair to say that the recipe has worsened since the 1990s. We can definitively say that there are different levels of quality of the dairy milk or Cadbury chocolate recipe across Cadbury's range of products. We can also see that Cadbury uses palm oil. Now, I'm not going to get up on my soapbox and yell about this. It's not something that I look out for in products. I don't avoid buying products if they use palm oil, so criticising them would maybe be a little bit hypocritical. However, I can at least say that the use of palm oil is criticised for its contribution to the further endangering of endangered species by way of rampant deforestation. And as I said earlier, it is not explicitly clear if palm oil was used in the old recipe anyway, but they still use it. Just a last little note on the recipes. I recently ran a poll with a couple of questions about the recipe. Because the change in recipes has caused a lot of controversy over the years, like the cream egg controversy, I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. I asked you, if Cadbury needed to make changes to dairy milk to address inflation, what would you prefer? 77% of you said that you'd prefer the same sized product but a higher price. I asked the same question again but with different options, and 97% of you said keep the recipe the same and increase the price. What's happening with Cadbury now? Looking at where Cadbury are now and towards the future, we see a few positive steps. However, I still think there are some fundamental problems with the Cadbury brand. But the positives first of all. In 2019, they launched a new Invent a Flavour competition where they put it out to us, the customers, and wanted our ideas for what bars we would like to see. They made 3 different bars, and yes, whilst all the flavours were pretty boring and uninspired, it was at least 3 brand new dairy milk products, which was something that we hadn't seen recently. And they continued that again and brought it back in 2020. Admittedly, they had to cancel one of them because they didn't make it clear enough that it contained nuts, but there we go. They also fairly recently launched Cadbury Dark Milk, which was actually trend setting and not trend following for a change. It was something that we hadn't really seen in the UK yet, so that was a positive step. We've also in very recent weeks seen the release of Cadbury Dairy Milk Orange Buttons and the re-release of the Orange 12, so it's great to see more flavours of their core products. I guess the main negatives in my eyes are a lack of product innovation. Gone are the days of the banana marvellous creation bars or the Chips Ahoy dairy milk bar, and begunneth has the age of the Oreo, with that brand infecting most of the Cadbury portfolio. Outside of the confectionery itself, the company's ethics continue to be brought into question. The National Trust recently ended their 13-year agreement for the Easter egg initiative after pressure from members that they should find a more sustainable and ethical brand to collaborate with. In summary, fix the recipe, standardise it across all of the products. Regain the prestige. Stop plastering the Cadbury name on spin-off products that don't even taste like Cadbury. Address the ethics of the company. Bring back the fuse. Hashtag reignite the fuse. And no, the Indian version doesn't count. It's completely different. I'm not a business manager, so I can't say that these changes will make Cadbury more profitable. But I can say that I think it would increase customer confidence in the brand. I can say that people's love for the brand would be rekindled. I mean, mine certainly would if they made some of these changes and took some of these steps. And I can say that it would bring some much needed joy and excitement to a world that has seen far too little of that in recent times. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below about Cadbury, their brand and their business, and I look forward to discussing it with you further. Cheers.